Hello, today I want to show you my creation version of an infinite heal wand. So what we're going to do is make a infinite cast familiar wand. So we're going to need the reduced lifetime, homing, pierce, drilling, spark bolt, and how we're going to have it heal us is we're going to make sure it has spark bolt with trigger, so every single frame it hits an enemy it will cast a spell. And if you want to just throw the heal immediately afterwards, what ends up happening is you heal the enemy, doesn't really fly back to you. It's not too beneficial, but if we have a delayed spell cast, that gives us like 2 or 3 seconds after the ticks for the spell to activate. So I've been testing so far. I mean, just the bolt by itself works for the earlier zones. Maybe later on you might want to add a few more damage so the tougher enemies will die before the delayed cast gets activated. And it works for either one of the heals. And the thing about after the trigger gets activated is you're going to have to redo the boomerang, the piercing, and likely the drilling as well to have the heals fly back to you. Now for the circles, you actually don't need the drilling shot, so if you only have one, but you have these, it could still work. And obviously, since we are using a healing spell afterwards, we would want to increase the length that the heal will last as long as possible. So let's start off with just the heal projectile. Let's see if we get lucky enough for one of them to cast. And as for the wand, this is the wand from the mountain, so I wanted to make sure it wasn't one that I created myself, so it could be made in the game. You can see it doesn't cast all the mana, it costs a huge amount, but not all, so it should, in theory, work. Bam. So what this should do is every time it hits an enemy, it should delay. This is why I like having the double homing, so it lasts a little longer. Cast a delay, then once the delay ends up falling out, it heals. And I actually screwed up by making the extend timer before spellcast. Definitely want to do that before, so this happens in like 2 seconds opposed to the 8 that I just had, and the longer duration affects the heal projectile. Okay, so I just saved and quit to get rid of the first familiar so we can start fresh. You can see it does cost so much of the mana that I need to wait for it to fully recharge before I go again. If I try to spam it too quickly, I won't get every spell effect on there that I'm trying to. And there we go. So it hits the enemy, casts a delay spell afterwards. You can see those green little sparks. Then afterwards it shoots out the healing projectile, which will only home towards me. The healing projectile won't go towards the enemy, but if an enemy gets in its path, it might heal them as well. One downside to the heal projectile is if they spawn, I'm not sure where the familiar went, he ran off to the north somewhere, but if the heal projectile spawns inside of rocks, sometimes it won't fly back to you. Like right there. So in the more open areas like the snow, it works a lot better. Another reason why the circle of vigor is probably the better bet, but you get a lot less chances of it activating. But you can see if it spawns in the air, it has no problem with the pierce effect to come and find you. Now I do have on the extra damage fields, which might be a little bit overkill for this early area. So let's head down a little bit deeper in. Let's try this on Steven, see if he'd be a better representation of a more difficult enemy. And I still killed him too fast. The irony, of course, is you kind of want to balance how many hits you want to do, because every hit has a or every hit will spawn a heal. So how much damage per heal do you want to do? And if you want to make it only healing, you would keep it just as this, so it does the least amount of damage possible. So let's go ahead and do that and swap over to circle of vigor. And since it's the circle, it has no problem passing through walls, so I won't need these two. A little easier on my mana consumption. But okay, we got lucky. But then there's one of the healing fields. It seems as though my first familiar is doing most of the damage, killing the enemies too fast. I think I'm gonna save and quit to get rid of the first familiar and only keep the one with the circle of vigor active. And bam, second try. This is one of the reasons I like to have two of the homing. Sometimes it just barely doesn't want to touch them. So now, every frame it hits will spawn nice healing circle come flying towards it. The healing circle doesn't heal as much as the healing projectile with piercing when it hits correctly, but it is a lot easier to manage since it won't spawn into the walls so often. Let's go ahead and lower our health. See just how fast. Yeah, so the circles aren't as fast as the projectiles will be, but just way more reliable. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to show you. I mean, the bare minimum, we would get rid of the extra times. Use probably one of these since it's less costly. You could try not even having the homing. So it's just going to be a constant damage field circling around you. I wouldn't recommend it. It's not as reliable. So it would be, if it would stop running away, it would kind of circle around you. You could run into enemies to try to activate it. I wouldn't recommend it. Ideally, you would want to have as much increased durations as you can without going over the mana limit. And this heal is better if you can afford it. One thing I do want to mention with the delayed spellcast, it does shoot 3 at once, but this initial portion is what triggers the multiple attempts come and can fail. So I wouldn't recommend filling up the latter portion with multiple spells, because this is what determines if it wins or succeeds, and you'll be using 3 of the healing spells every time you do it. Try them one at a time, unless you're feeling very ballsy, because it will cast 3 if you do get it correctly. I do tend to go a little bit slower when I have the guys flying around me, because it's a little hard to see and I don't want to lose them since they are so rare to cast. Again, I wouldn't recommend this as your main source of damage, even though it is the familiar thing, because sometimes it just doesn't like to attack. It'll just creep right before the enemy. So having a way to actually damage and kill things would be ideal, and just when that hits, you get some heals. You can see when I get to the later areas and the enemies have more health, the more ticks it does, more heals. I have no idea where the heal familiar is. somewhere lost in this chaos. There it is.